Mangaluder.
This is Mangililu.
And, oh look at that face. How are you? And hopefully see some fantastic fish on coral. We've got some smooth water. Look at that. A beach. This is going to be exciting. Have a tone.
Lychee mojitos. That's happening.
Do you reckon this is the Carib Sea special grade?
Yeah, definitely. That's $80. $80.
$80. Yeah, that's it.
Now the first thing I've noticed when I've actually dove into these waters is that the coral cover is not as extensive as what I saw back at the resort on the east coast of Vanuatu. But that's okay because the fish life here is amazing. This place is absolutely teeming with fish. And not only that, it's an easy snorkel. There are some deeper areas, but generally the water's depth is sitting around about, say, 2 to 3 meters. And that makes for a particularly easy experience if you're new to snorkeling. I love my triggerfish, and a favourite of mine is the Picasso triggerfish, and there's a big adult smack bang in the middle of the screen. I'm going to dive down and actually check him out, but what I haven't actually noticed is a very special fish coming into view. Polymictes trimaculatus, or the trimac angelfish, is a fish I haven't seen personally in the wild before, and I was actually really impressed by it. It's a big fish too. This guy's sitting around about 25 centimeters. He's brilliant yellow coloration, that fantastic black and white black and white anal fin. And check out these blue lips as he comes a bit closer. He's a really stunning fish, and a fish which I'm going to spend a bit more attention, paying a bit more attention to. But unfortunately, these guys didn't last long because a mermaid from the central coast of New South Wales swam on through. I'm just cruising along here, and what I'm about to find out is just how common Centropyge angelfish, in particular lemonpeels, are in Vanuatu. They are literally everywhere. I didn't really pay much attention to the beauty of these fish, but they truly are a remarkably beautiful fish and just as curious about us as we are of them.
It's actually quite different to the other on the eastern side there. It's a lot shallower. It's not as good coral cover by any means so far anyway, but the fish life is probably a little bit more extensive. We'll see if we can find some more angels for you guys, because I know you love your angels. We've got some bicolor and some pearl scale. It seems to be a bit of a hybrid between a lemonpeel and a pearl scale. We don't tend to do so much in aquariums, but it's becoming a little bit more common, but I think we should do more of it, and that is actually keep our fish in pairs or groups. And down there is a trio of bicolor angels.
The same goes to be said for butterfly fish too. I always saw those in pairs. What I've spotted here is a group of 4 Centropyge angelfish, but not of the one species. So I've got 2 lemonpeel angelfish and 2 hybrid lemonpeel and pearl scale angelfish. I've popped the actual picture of a pearl scale in the top corner there, so you can actually compare between it and the lemonpeel on the far right hand side. The fish in the middle is that classic hybrid that you see between the two, with a yellow front, a dusky rear, a red eye and a blue eye ring around it. But the fish on the far left hand side is something that I haven't seen before, and it was the only one that I saw when I was snorkeling in Vanuatu. It has the more of a lemonpeel appearance, but it has a smoky face to it with a blue eye ring. The eye was not red as in a pearl scale, and it has a dusky blotch to the tail.
Ads, there is a blue tang down there. So we're actually seeing a blue tang, a Pacific blue tang for the first time here. Dark-eye hawkfish.
There's a little Lemonpeel Angelfish just over there. Now these arc-eye hawkfish, I think they're a much underappreciated fish in the reef aquarium hobby. They're literally everywhere in Vanuatu, and they seem to prefer sitting amongst these Poecilophora dukesii colonies. I think the hobby's leaned a lot towards the long-nosed hawk and the flame hawk at the expense of this medium-sized hawk such as the arc-eye and even the falco. Now they won't hurt your fishes in an aquarium, they just might not be so safe with your shrimp. Over here, I'm actually swimming through, it's a fairly flat terrain, but there's this great big bommy in the middle of this area. And yes, it's pronounced bommy for my American viewers, not bomy. Usually the bommies in these sorts of areas are a bit of a mecca for larger predatory fish such as moray eels, gropers and snappers, which might be hiding in amongst its caves and crevices. I got a little bit distracted here by this bright green splash of colour down here, thinking that it might have been green star polyps, but alas, no, it's a stony, some sort of a moon coral. How's this guy for a little gem? A little yellow, long-nosed butterfly fish. These guys were fairly common. They actually weren't in pairs. They were usually singular. I was looking out for a buddy when unfortunately I came across a couple of two other buddies, the mermaids from the Central Coast. Now, I didn't actually see any large predators in this bommy, but what caught my eye was a large shoal of yellowtail demoiselles. This is a Neopoma centris species. I think it's Azazeron as opposed to the Chinese demoiselle, which is Bankeri.
Those damsels are really underappreciated. I know ads wouldn't like them, but I'm a fan of damsels. And they're the Neopoma centris. I don't know if they're Bankeri or Bankeri or... I think the yellowtail grey blue damsels, they're a Neopoma centris, but they're really quite striking. They're cheap, they live well in groups. I think that's a really good idea for the aquarium.
What I'm pointing out here is some tridacna clams living on the actual rock structure itself and being buried, or I should say burrowing into the actual substrate. That tells me that these guys must be a crocea. The croceas emit a substance that dissolves the limestone underneath and around them, allowing them to actually burrow right down deep into the substrate, so only their mantle and the lips of their shell are actually flush with the surface. Really hard to get good footage of these guys because obviously they react to the presence of another organism so close, particularly a big one such as myself.
Those giant clams, those tridacnids are croceas. They burrow all the way into the actual substrate, so just their mantle is exposed.
There's Ads down there checking out some black sea cucumbers. He's going to give us a bit of an example of some synchronized swimming form, looking very good, Ads. Cruising along this sort of reef top or reef flat area, I come across a coral which is actually very common here. For some reason it was the dominant coral. It's this purple acropora dotted all across this reef flat. How actual common and dominant this species of coral actually was. Clown tangs love this kind of an area. You can see a great little clown tang there. And as I'm cruising off here, I do notice the depth of blue going out beyond, which makes me want to dive on down deep and cruise along the substrate. It's times like these that I wish I actually had some compressed air, either some scuba tanks or even an air buddy system, so I could actually spend a decent amount of time down low amongst the substrate, getting a good view at the fish and the coral life without having to return to the surface for another breath. I must admit, as I'm getting a little bit older, my lung capacity is diminishing a little bit, and it's taking a little bit harder to actually spend more time down below and check out the life that I'd like to. Check out those moorish idols over on the far side of that reef. Now those guys don't look all that impressive from this angle. However, those fish, if you outstretch your hand, that was the size of their torso, their body, plus their fins. They were immense moorish idols. They were really spectacular. Now I think just down here, I get an interesting glimpse of another angelfish. There he goes there. That's a semicircular angelfish, or a Koran angelfish. And I go down deep to try and have a closer look at him, but in true angelfish form, he's slipped out of view, but I'm left to actually admire a pair of bannerfish, as well as some moorish idols. There's the bannerfish there, the brown with the white stripes. Now coming up this reef wall, how's that for colour combination? We've got our convict tanks cruising on past over that white limestone rubble, the pale mauve pink and the coral, and a fish which you don't really often see, well, ever really in the aquarium hobby, and they're the monocle brims, which are those classic sort of oval shaped fish with the black markings on them. The lavender tangs were also very common. Actually, probably the lavender tangs, the convicts, and the clown tangs were the most common on this reef. But of course, there's a Lemonpeel Angel just to spoil the colour combination. This guy was particularly inquisitive. He was quite close to his shelter there, so he had no real need to dart away. He was kept company by a nice little Roland's damsel there, and a pretty cute Scopaz tang, which is about to come back into shot pretty soon. Butterfly fish species which I will be adding to one of my aquariums soon is the citron butterfly, or Chelylon citronellus, and this is a pair just here. It's a young pair. They're only a small butterfly fish, but what I've found about them is they're quite bold. They're not inclined to swim away quickly such as the other butterflies, and instead they'll sort of hang around and check me out as much as I'm checking them out. Of course, being a fish collector, I'm here thinking about how easy it would be to collect these two fish and bring them home, but alas, I can't be doing that when I'm overseas in Vanuatu. There they are there, just chilling on with a hardwick wrasse swimming past. Those hardwick wrasses were actually always up in the water column. Very rarely do I see them down low around the substrate. Now, I'm not actually pointing out two black sea cucumbers. Instead, what I'm pointing out is a sleeper goby, a yellow-headed sleeper goby, although not much yellow on this guy's face. He was pretty cool, just cruising there by himself. And there is another specimen over here with a couple of goatfish. There he is there. Nice little Suffleman triggerfish, doing his best to get out of view. Good little guy. What I'm pointing out here is a coral.
Now again, I'm humbled by my lack of knowledge of Montipora, not Montipora, Acropora. However, I think this is Millipora, Millipora.
As I've mentioned before, Acropora taxonomy or identification is something that I'm interested in. I think it's really important to know the actual animal that we are discussing in the hobby and not just some fancy names. But I must admit I do get confused. I think this one is Acropora millipora, but I have also realised that other coral species such as Digitifera can actually be quite similar in its branch shape. And I'm yet to get right down into the microscopy of their coral skeletons. Now, cruising up this small reef wall, I'm met by a great variety of Montipora, both the scrolly Montipora and some encrusting Montipora on that beautiful, detailed, coralline covered live rock. And that's what a coral reef looks like in nature, not a fluorescent, showy pop that we often see in the reef hobby. But something's different here. The fish are going a little bit crazy, they're unsettled, and I'm starting to sense there's something different in my environment. I'm thinking that Big Tone has ordered that mojito.
We found ourselves a friend for lunch. This is for my wife. She always likes to read the menu. Lunch is over. Time to get back in the water and have another look around. Low tide's up. It's about 2 o'clock. For all you lovers of base rock, check all this out. Let's go. Now you can see what I'm talking about with this low tide kind of a shoreline. It's all what seems to be solid rock. Hello, pup. But I don't think it is actually solid rock because it's got all these caverns and cracks down lower where all the fish can actually retreat. And there's actually some pretty particular fish species which love this sort of shallow intertidal area. In particular, the Rhinacanthus genus of triggerfish. So Picassos, wedgetails. So let's see if we can find some of those guys. How's that? That's pretty cool. This is in like half a metre of water and there's 3 juvenile Picasso triggers actually hanging out together and feeding together.
So the triggerfish seem to really enjoy living in this very shallow intertidal environment. There's lots of actually cracks and crevices that are deep within the rockwork that, although it looks like it's a flat solid platform, I think it's anything but. And there's a lot of habitat for these triggerfish to wedge themselves into and erect that dorsal spine to lock themselves in position. Spending a little time admiring what I think might be an Acropora millipora and back on the hunt for more triggerfish. As you can see, there are fish darting out in all different directions which can easily take my attention away, including this beautiful little citron butterfly fish. It's a Cheilon citronellus again. Obviously I'm sitting here thinking about how much it'd be easy to collect him and bring him home to Palau Reef. But alas, I'm back on the hunt for triggerfish once more. There's some big Picasso triggerfish cruising on through the silty water. I think these triggerfish are just so adapted to eating the algae and the benthic fauna which is living in this intertidal zone. You just see that little guy there just waiting outside his hole to dart back for safety if need be. Now what you're about to see now is another species. There he is dead center. We'll follow him along. Another species of triggerfish. This is the wedge-tailed trigger, which I have one in my Palau reef at home. This is Rhinacanthus rectangularis, I believe, or rectangulus. They're very similar in appearance to the Picasso triggerfish. They've got that black marking on their body, but they have a triangle pattern in the caudal peduncle. They weren't quite so common as the Picasso triggerfish and one other species of triggerfish, which there are some large adults just coming into view right now. These big guys, and they are pretty big, they're about a foot long each, are the black-bellied triggerfish. And this is a trigger I'm not very familiar with because when I looked them up, they occur in northern Australia.
So there's close relative of Picasso trigger, it's a bursa trigger. Actually, that's not a bursa trigger. I'll have to check that one.
Yeah, definitely not a bursa. The bursa is the Suffleman chrysopterus, which we saw earlier on. This is the black-bellied triggerfish, Rhinacanthus verrucosus. And a pretty spunky little guy here who's darted into his hole and is just hoping and praying that I'll leave him alone.
Alright, time to say goodbye to Mangaluder. Easy fish, easy snorkeling, and actually a pretty flash resort too.
By Mangaluder.
I reckon he'll bite you for sure.